Okay, I am going to be recording by myself today, and I'm going to show you guys 9 quick tips for intermediate players about 3 check. These tips apply to people rated about 1200 to 1900. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Tip number 1. How to play as black when white plays e3. So basically, the goal of this is to play this in one move. So basically, you start off with the knight. You want to defend this square as much as possible so that when he plays bishop here, you can easily defend it from this square. So if he goes like here, you can start off with here because you have enough protection against that square. You always want to start off with the knight. If he goes here, and you go here, he already has enough protection on this square. So you want to play here first, and then when he plays here or something, you can successfully protect it. Or something like this. Tip number 2. How to play as white when black goes double knights. So this is basically the lines of this. You go here, he starts off there, you go here, and you go here. A lot of players might go d4, but black can just play here. And you're not able to take because they can get a bishop here, and then you're in a bad position. They already have 2 checks off, and they still have their queen on the board. So, what you want to do is you want to play e4, which kicks his knight out, enabling you to get your knight to this square. If he goes here, you can just play here, and then he can't get anywhere. He can go here or here, but he won't be able to get anywhere. If he goes here, you can block off all threats of his knight coming here, and then his bishop, by just playing d4. Tip number 3. How to play as white when black goes right here. This is a trap. You can push your pawn right here, and his knight is forced to move. If his knight goes here, you can go right here, and then he's forced to take with one of these 2 pawns, which means you get a guaranteed check. If he goes here, he has to block with one of the pieces, which means you get a guaranteed second check. If he goes here, you can go right here. You can get your queen out right here. He goes here, you take with your queen, that's 2 checks. He takes, and then you get a bishop out. There's nowhere he can move to stop this 3rd check. If he goes with this knight right here, it's the same thing, except if he goes right here, instead of checking with the queen because your bishop can't come out right there, you just go inside and then you fork, which is overall a really good position. Tip number 4. How to play as black when white goes e4. So basically what you want to do in this spot is you go here, and then any good white player would go right here to prevent this from to have this happen, I mean. And then, you go right here, any good white player would go right here, obviously, and then you go right there. Basically, what you want to try to move the knights, if he goes like bishop here or something, you want to try and move the knights out of their spots so you can get in a good position like one of these. Anyway, let's go back and see what other variants of this thing there can be. If white decides to go right here, you can just respond by going here, disabling this check right here. He can still go right here, and you can try and go right here, but even though he gets a check, you have a virtually impenetrable defense. Now let's go to another variant. You can also try to go here, but you will be able to even land off a free check or get a free knight, because if he goes here, you can land a check with your bishop. Overall, I think this is a really good strategy that you can try. Tip number 5. A quick trap if black decides to respond with moving their f-pawn. So you can go pawn here or here, it doesn't even really matter. And if they go here, it's a mate in 5. First move, you go right here, and they are forced to respond with this move right here. You will go way across here. Are trying to get this check right here, and going like this. There are 2 ways to respond to this. He can go here, which is actually the best move, but then you can just follow up with this and go right here. Another thing they can do is he go here, and then you take. He has to come over here. That's 2 checks, and then you get your 3rd check off. If he goes here, then you can go here. This also works right here, and you can just take. He takes, and then you land the 3rd check. Overall, it's a really bad idea to move your f-pawn. Tip number 6. Moving your h or a pawn when your opponent has castled. Sometimes in these positions, it's a good idea to push your pawn like this, trying to force some pressure on here. So let's see how this plays out. So he will go here, and then you can go in here. He might try to take with the knight or something. If he takes with the pawn, you can just get your bishop in here, and then you can just go right here, and then you're in a really good spot with a check, and you're already lining up for the third. For the other two, I mean. And then if he takes with the knight, you can sacrifice your rook, and then he's forced to take, otherwise the rook will just go in here, and then you go here, and then the queen is going to line up for some great checks. Overall, I think it's a really good idea if you're in a tough spot sometimes to move your h-pawn and a-pawn when the other opponent has castled. Tip number 7. Check in with your bishop when your opponent has castled, even though the knight can block it. So sometimes, in this kind of position right here, it's a good idea to check with your bishop, even though the king won't be forced to come out. So I don't recommend checking with sacrificing a whole minor piece just for your first check, but in this specific situation, it's a really good idea to do. So he will take, and then you will look in for the second check. Now, it's always, if you have 2 checks with your queen on the board, you have a really good chance at winning. So I do not recommend letting your opponent get 2 checks with their queen on the board. So they may go here, trying to prevent their checks, the second check, and I will go here, trying to get that check. There's nowhere he can go without sacrificing another check. If he takes, I can just go in with the queen. I think overall, in this kind of position where you have both your knights out, and he doesn't really have very many developed pieces, I think it's okay to sacrifice the bishop so that you can get your knights into position. Tip number 8. Moving your e-pawn to e5 instead of going with d4. Sometimes I notice that a lot of players, they like to go d4 instead of e5, even though I really like that spot. So if they would, such as this position right here, I think it's a lot better to go e5 than d4. So if they go here, they will take, and then he goes here, and then your knight's kind of out of position, and they can kind of build sort of a counterattack. And they will be able to get their pawn in the center, which is not what you want as white. So I recommend going here, and then they don't really have any space to build up. And then you can get your knight into here, which is a really controlling spot. They're able to get a free check off for just a pawn, which is great, and you're controlling a lot of squares. I really think it's a good idea to push your e-pawn to e5 instead of going d4 sometimes. I've noticed a lot of players do that, push d4, and I think it's a lot better of a move if you go e5. Tip number 9. How to defend as black when white goes e4. So in this position, I really like the move e5. Some of you may think, oh, they can just take this pawn. But you get 1 check with the bishop, and then they have to block it. And that's 2 checks, and you still have your queen on the board, looking for the third and final check. So black may respond with a move like this right here, but you can just push your pawn, and it will be great. And then you have a nice pawn. It's hard to defend against it. And then you can block this check, and then they don't really have any room to develop. You can just block all their things. Also, another cool trick that I found that you can do is you can go right here. If they go right here, you can actually go with your queen sacking this knight. If they take with the knight, you can check with the queen for a guaranteed 3 checks. So if he goes here, you can check with the bishop, and then if they go to a black square, your bishop can check one more time, and if they go here, your pawn will go in for the third and final check. So this is how you play against white when they go d4. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment in the comment section saying you really enjoyed it and you want more of this kind of content, and I will consider doing it. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.